Test. I'm hoping. Hey guys, can someone just tell me, we've got a new mic. I know we're not started yet, but I wanted to, this is the first time we're using YouTube live stream. Is the audio okay? Because I'm using this mic. Just someone let me know in the chat box. Is the audio, can you hear me well? Can you, does it all sound okay? Because if not, yeah, who's just, I think Levi will have, okay, yes we can. Okay, perfect. Brill. Well, we're just going to hold on for a few minutes. I just wanted to make sure we, because this is the first time we've used YouTube Live, I have started streaming a couple of minutes early to make sure everything is tested. So feel free to grab your coffee, your water, whatever it is you need to do for the next couple of minutes. We will kick off at 3 p.m. sharp. This is fun. I'm going to use YouTube more often. It's also good because it will upload it directly to the recording afterwards, which often, normally, if we use something like Zoom, we have to download, process, re-upload, but this will do it all automatically. Okay, couple more minutes. Levi's joining from Manchester. What a shock. Levi's in the team. So if you see Levi planting any questions, she's sat about 3 doors down that way. Let us know, guys, where are you joining from? Where in the world are you joining us from? We will get kicked off very soon. Joining from Oslo, Norway. I went to Norway in September and loved it. We went to Oslo. We've got India. Whereabouts in India? India is a big place. Joining from Dubai, beautiful. Germany, Bristol. We're very worldwide. Birmingham, found your TikTok yesterday. Perfect timing, perfect timing. New Delhi, nice. Okay. Welcome in, everyone. Holland, but living in Guatemala, I'm guessing that's going to say. It's a big jump. Joining from Stockport, gorgeous, just down the road. Stockport, North Dakota, Texas. Wow, this is very global. I love to see that. Normally, it's like lots of UK cities that people say, but we've got some wonderful places all over the world. Portugal, Bristol, Birmingham, Texas. I'd love to go to Texas. Alberta, Canada, gorgeous. I'm obsessed with Heated Rivalry at the minute, and they've just been nominated for about 20 of the Canadian actor awards. And so anytime someone mentions Canada, it's all I can think about. You're also obsessed with Heated Rivalry. Good. I need someone to talk about it. I feel like in the UK, it's not everyone's watched it yet. Okay, we've hit 3 p.m. I'm going to share my screen. Welcome in. Just give everyone a minute to get inside. Welcome in, everyone. We've got Vienna, Stockholm, Nottingham, Inverness, beautiful. Exeter, very global. Well, it's great to have you here. Let us know in the chat box, guys. Where are you joining from? Whereabouts in the world are you today? We've got an incredibly global audience. And as I've said, this is the first time we're using YouTube. And I feel like a streamer. Feels good. Also, this is it's kind of our new office. We've been in here a few months, but we've had some bits done to it over the last week or so. So it also feels good to be in an office that's put together. Philadelphia, Ontario, Montreal, lots of Canada. We were just talking about Heated Rivalry. So sorry to bring that up again. I won't bring it up again, I promise. I'm annoying everyone in my personal life with it at the minute. Okay, guys, let's get going. Let's kick us off. So a big, big warm welcome to why your culture feels off and how to fix it. Now, just to make you all aware, you can see the chat box. It should be super easy to see. We're going to get to the chat box towards the end. So we're going to have plenty of time for questions. We have technically an hour's slot for this session, but I like to get the educational part done in about 40-ish minutes, and then we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end. So if you have any questions throughout the session, please just kind of pull them together and send it into the chat box towards the end. Something I always like to say at the beginning of these sessions is, I know we're on a screen, right? I feel like I'm with you, but we are technically on a screen. And it is so easy to get distracted. Some of you may already have flicked over to your email tabs or flicked over to, Slack or something else. It's so easy to do it. Try your absolute hardest just for the next half an hour or so, just to stay as present with me as possible. So welcome to Why Your Culture Feels Off and How to Fix It. Whether you are a business owner, an MD, a COO, a founder, a middle manager in a small team, a senior leader in a huge organization, this is for you. This session is for you. And culture, I think culture can often feel very big, very messy and intangible. So it feels like something that is hard to get our teeth into, and it's especially hard to understand how to fix it. But my kind of promise to you guys today is we're going to take this, what feels like a huge, big topic, and we're going to turn it into something that you can action, that you can take into your team and actually make some tangible action with. So I want to tell you a story about the most talented group, some of the most talented athletes ever assembled, and how they nearly broke an American sport. So I'm going to take you back to 2004. If we've got anyone from the US in here today, you may know this story already. So I'm going to take you back to 2004. It's the Athens Olympics, and the USA have put together their men's basketball team. So it's these people here at the top, the men's basketball team. And this isn't just a good team. This is like NBA superstars. You've got the best people in the entire world inside this USA team in 2004. Best basketball players on the planet, all in their prime, all wearing the same jersey and come together. And so on paper, unbeatable, okay? On paper, should win the gold hands down. But in reality, they turned up to the 2004 Olympics. They lost to Lithuania, they lost to Argentina, and they went home with a bronze medal. And it was the worst result the US had ever had in Olympic basketball history, because basketball is a sport that the US love. So it was the worst result they'd ever had in basketball history. And after the coaches kind of did a big post-mortem to really understand exactly what went wrong in this 2004 team, they quickly realized that it wasn't necessarily the players. It wasn't that each of the players individually had done anything wrong. It was that as a team, there was no trust. There was no feeling of shared identity. They didn't feel like a team. Every single player in the team had sort of spent their career up until this point being the guy, being the star, and the one that the team was kind of built around. And nobody had done the work to turn these 14 individual stars into one team. And the coach, who was a guy called Larry Brown, was criticized because people said he was playing favorites, so he wasn't utilizing his players properly. And LeBron, you'll know LeBron, was the youngest, most junior player in that 2004 team, and arguably would go on to be one of the best players of all time. He actually barely got played because he wasn't a favorite of the coach at the time. And so you've got 14 of the best players in the entire world, and they couldn't even beat Lithuania. Fast forward just 4 years, this photo at the bottom here. It's 2008 now, and we're in Beijing Olympics. The Americans go again, and this time, before they pick a single player, they decided they were going to do something very different. So Coach K, they've got a new coach this time, one of the greatest coaches now we know in history, sits down with USA Basketball and says, before we bring these team members together, I am addressing the culture first. So they assembled the team, and a full year before they even got to the Olympic Games, which is unheard of, a full year, he set some non-negotiables with the team. He said, we want accountability, we want sacrifice, we want togetherness. He made it super clear that, and this is something that I love about culture in general, that egos did not belong in the building. And it was the same talent pool. So those 14 players are almost the exact same. The majority of the team is exactly the same. It's the same country, the same, talent pool, largely the same players. And in 2008, they went undefeated. They won gold. And they called this team, this is why I've screenshotted this Facebook post, it was called the Redeem Team. They called it the USA's Redeem Team. And they didn't just win, they absolutely dominated every single game that they played. And now, the reason I'm telling you this story, you may have figured it out by now, is because nothing about the talent specifically changed. The resources were the same. The goal was the same. The only thing that was different in 2008 was the culture. It was the conditions that the coach had deliberately built around those people that meant they could win. And so if we look at a team like this and we know that culture is the variable that takes kind of the same group of people from bronze, defeated, unable to win, just 4 years later to winning the gold, what does that tell you guys about what's possible inside your team? Now, I've got one more story for you. So I'm taking you all the way back to 1847. I loved reading about this. I absolutely loved finding this story. So 1847, there was a medical researcher called Dr. Ingaz Semmelweis. He was Hungarian, Dr. Semmelweis. And he worked for the medical board in Vienna, and he was kind of commissioned to do some research as to why the mortality rate in mothers, so women giving birth, was so high. And what he found, what he found was, when he did his research, that there was a huge difference between the mortality rate in mothers who had babies delivered by midwives versus mothers who had babies delivered by a doctor. The mortality rate for the midwives, if a midwife delivered your baby, you had a 2% chance of dying. If the doctor delivered your baby, you had an 18% chance of dying. So a huge, huge, huge jump. And so he figured this out, did some digging, and was like, why is this the case? Why is it the doctors are just having such a low success rate with the women dying after giving birth? What he found was the doctors were going straight from performing autopsies to delivering babies without washing their hands. Seems so simple now, it seems so strange, but back in 1847, we didn't really understand the concept of bacteria and infection and, transmitting bacteria from one person to another. So the doctors were going from doing autopsies, different kind of surgeries, immediately into delivering babies, and then obviously it was contaminated and the mother had this 18% rate of dying. So Dr. Semmelweis goes back to the medical board and says the doctors need to start washing their hands. The board came back to him and rejected him and said, that's not true. You know why? Because doctors can't be wrong. There was a culture within the medical institution back in the 19th century that doctors had to be right. Doctors were seen as the highest up people in the hierarchy of the medical world, still are today. And there was no way that they could be wrong. And so they rejected him because of this culture. Now, Dr. Semmelweis actually died in an asylum before his work was even used or recognized. It took 2 decades, 20 plus years, before the hospitals ended up mandating hand washing. And when they finally did it, it reduced deaths in mothers by 90%. And the lesson here, the reason I love/hated reading this story is that a bad culture will reject the right answer to protect its own ego. And in this instance, it literally kills people. So if we just kind of bring this to the modern day organizations, if you imagine a software company, okay, and you've got a junior developer that's just joined, they're a few months in, and they're reviewing a code before a major launch. The developer spots something that she thinks is like a critical security vulnerability. She raises it with her seniors and they dismiss it. They're like, we've been building it this way for years. Just trust the process. So she's like, are you sure? They're like, yeah, we've been doing it. Read the room. You can't be questioning the senior engineers. They don't like to listen to juniors. And maybe they don't even say those things out loud, but it's felt. It's, oh no, they'll have done their job. We listen to them. And the culture just makes it clear that hierarchy beats the truth. And all of us may have been in this situation in the past whereby we kind of gravitate. I think they call it the hippo effect. It's the highest paid person in the room's opinion. We kind of gravitate towards seniority as being right all the time. And therefore we accidentally reject the truth. We reject, something that could solve all of our problems. And so let's say in this example, the product then launches, and a few months later, that vulnerability that the junior developer was trying to point out is exposed. The product goes to market, it's exposed. customer data is breached, and they're paying millions of pounds in fines, and that junior developer has likely already left because they joined and they saw the culture for what it was, and they said, you're not going to listen to me, so I'm moving on. So we all know the boiling frog analogy, but I'll tell it to you one more time. So if you put a frog in boiling water, it will immediately jump out because obviously it feels it, it touches it, immediately jumps out. If you put a frog in cold water and slowly increase the temperature, it will stay in and boil to death because it doesn't notice the 1 degree increases. Bad culture works exactly the same way. We don't notice it deteriorating. We don't notice every small compromise feels manageable. Every time we, avoid a difficult conversation, we don't hold someone accountable, we allow lateness to slide, we say yes to things that we don't want to do. Every time, it's just a small movement. It's just a small compromise that feels manageable. But you get a year on, 2 years on, 5 years, 10 years on, and by the time people realize, even if they don't realize, it might even be today that we realize how toxic the culture is, they potentially have already been shaped by it. And this is why we have to actively tend to culture. It cannot be something that we passively allow to kind of run past. All the surface issues that you feel day to day inside your team or business, sales, marketing, product development, clients disengaging, clients leaving, clients not finding us, not signing up, revenue issues, all of that, if you really come back to the root of it, can be drawn down to culture. It can be drawn down to the team and the systems that your team are building, the innovations that your team are bringing to the table or not bringing to the table, the new ideas that they're coming up with, the new suggestions that they're putting in place, and whether or not they get listened to. It all boils down to this. It all boils down to culture. And every single one of these stories, from Semmelweis to the frog to the basketball team, they all share this same DNA, which is nobody set out to create a bad culture. Nobody not one of us in a leadership position sits there and goes, oh, I can't be arsed. Like, let's just let the standards slip. I can't be bothered. I don't want greatness. I'm not, but we don't consciously do it. We don't decide. We think we're acting in people's best interests. And so we kind of ignore the warning signs, and it just happens gradually. It happens invisibly through these kind of thousands of just small micro moments where culture is ignored. Culture is not measured. Culture is put on the back burner. We try and, put plasters over things. And the thing is, your team are experiencing some version of this right now. Everyone in this room, this virtual YouTube room, your team will be experiencing different levels and different versions of this right now. It could be really small. It could be really subtle. Most of us aren't doing autopsies followed by delivering babies, but there will be something similar to the doctors not washing their hands in your business. There will be something that can be spotted by people inside your team that is potentially the seniors aren't doing the right thing, the managers aren't doing the right thing, and people spot it and it goes unnoticed because maybe there isn't this culture of psychological safety for people to speak up because they might think, well, they're not going to listen to me anyway. But it doesn't have to be that way. So I love this photo. Want to take you back. I'm actually going to take you back to when I was 17. That I'm not 17 in that photo. But why do you, Heather, give a fuck? That's what GAF stands for. Why do you give a fuck about culture? So I want to take you back to when I was 17. I was working in a restaurant. It was my first kind of like real proper job. And I had a manager who just ruled through fear. And if anyone has worked in these environments, just let us know in the chat, because I feel like hospitality can be hard, really hard at the best of times. And I had a manager who just really ruled through fear. And it was this kind of like, all of us, the entire team had this constant like low level dread all the time that something was going to go wrong. And I remember very clearly, there was 2 instances actually. One where I was setting up the restaurant. It was a Sunday. There was no one in. I was just getting the restaurant set up and ready. She was at the front cashing up the tills, and I was at the back polishing the cutlery. I dropped a fork on the table, and it just made a bit of a loud noise. I was polishing the fork, dropped it, and it made a loud noise. She turned around and shouted, if she does that again, I'm going to fire her on the spot. I don't know why she was talking in third person because there was only the two of us in the room, but she was. Anyway, so that put the fear of God inside me. Then there was an instance whereby the restaurant was full. I was serving, doing my job on my section. And one of the customers had said to me, please, can you turn the aircon off? Because it's right in my face. It's really cold. And we just kind of can't enjoy ourselves. So I turned the aircon off, thinking I was doing the right thing. Fast forward half an hour. She storms out into the middle of the restaurant, shouts at me in front of all the customers at the top of her voice, you can't turn off the aircon without me telling you to do it. And, in hindsight, it was actually a bad idea to turn off the aircon because the restaurant was really hot. However, I didn't know that. I didn't figure that. I just thought, customer told me to do this thing, I'm going to do it. What should have happened in that scenario is she takes me to the back, explains why it's so important that we keep the aircon on, tells me what to do if someone, if maybe we could have moved them tables, we could have stopped the aircon from swinging, we could have just turned it down a little bit. But anyway, and as someone who is so hardworking, I am someone who genuinely cares about everything that I do, everything I put in 110%. I became terrible at my job because I was so in my head about what she was going to say that I just couldn't be present with customers. Never mind trying to, have fun with them, make their service incredible. I was literally just constantly thinking, don't forget anything, rush, quick, run from back to forth, make sure you do it as fast as possible. I would just avoid any situation where I might get it wrong rather than just kind of doing the things I thought were the best for the customers in that moment. And that fear just shrank me. It just shrank. It just made me such a small, fearful version of myself. And I was 17. It was a job that, it wasn't necessarily a career builder, but it was an important job for me at the time. I was 17 years old. And so just imagine what that does to a grown adult with a mortgage and a family and a career that they've spent building. And it may be that we're not shouting at people in front of customers, but it may be that someone comes up with a new idea and we shoot them down. Someone makes a mistake, and instead of coaching them through it and taking them to the back and explaining why we shouldn't do it, we just shoot them down and say, why did you think that was right? Why did you think that was the right thing to do? Or just vilify them, judge them publicly, make them kind of feel a bit stupid. Imagine what that does to a person. It shrinks them. And when we're in the wrong environment, even high performers, and I would probably argue that everyone in this virtual room is a high performer, it shrinks us. It really shrinks us when we are in these cultures built on fear, because we start to play not to lose instead of playing to win. And I have never once met a high performer who doesn't behave differently under those conditions. And it was the exact same thing at Harrods. To a lot of you who've joined my webinars before, I talk about this a lot, but I worked at Harrods. Harrods was kind of like my first full-time job out of uni. And Harrods was also a really difficult place to work. Had a really tough culture, very psychologically unsafe. And it kind of just shrinks you as a person. But then fast forward to this photo, which is, 2018, 17-ish. I joined a small software company called Go Proposal. I was the second member of staff. I had a boss who was brilliant. I had a boss who gave me feedback, held me to high standards, but allowed me to experiment, backed me if I made a mistake, made me feel like it's okay, coached me through it. We had solid core values that were actually used. I don't know if you see behind me, we've got our core values up on the wall. Core values are useless if we don't use them, but they're really powerful if we use them properly. And then when we joined Sage Group, so we sold the business into Sage in back end of 2020, my career really took off there. So my salary tripled, my team size tripled, and my entire life changed. And when it's kind of just, for me, culture is so personal, and I'm so passionate about it because it changed my life. Going from working in a culture where I felt squashed, I felt vilified, I felt judged, to working inside two different cultures where I had a boss that just challenged me and fulfilled me. You don't have to, in order to have people love their job and love what they do, right? We don't have to pussyfoot around them all the time. We don't have to soften things. We're not trying to just be nice to everyone. In order to build these cultures, it's actually the opposite. It's transparency. And it's allowing people to make mistakes. Now, used to survey my team like every 2 weeks. We're going to talk a little bit more about data in a second, but I used to survey my team every 2 weeks. I would ask them questions, feedback for me as a manager, feedback for the other managers in the team, to understand exactly what they needed. And now I know this, and actually something that I want to talk about here is AI, because really coincidentally, I have had like 3 different conversations this week with COOs of massive businesses. One was an MD of a smaller company. Just different conversations about how they're trying to get their teams to use AI, to adopt AI, to kind of bring like the Claude Cowork, the N8N, the agents, to really kind of build that into their culture and to get their team using it. And the challenge I bring to them, to every single person, is, okay, well, how safe do your team feel to make mistakes? How safe do they feel to innovate? If they make a mistake, do you back them? If they make a mistake, do you kind of tell them it's all good, it's all good? Let's keep making mistakes. Let's keep experimenting. Let's keep trying and learning. Because if you're not doing that, how on earth are we going to expect them to experiment with something as kind of big and scary and forward paced as AI if they don't even feel comfortable to say the wrong thing by accident in a meeting? And so maybe you're sat here like, Heather, I want to do this, but I've tried everything and it's not worked. So some culture mistakes that I guarantee we have all made at some point. And as I go through these, you're going to start to recognize them very clearly. These are kind of when we try to build an incredible culture, we will make some mistakes along the way. Now, there's 6 mistakes that I've got here. And I want you to put in the chat box how many of these mistakes you have made. So I'm going to go through all 6. When we get to the end of the 6, I want you to tell me, out of 6, how many have you done before or your company's done before, okay? So the first culture mistake we make is we go to the survey graveyard. I had so much fun building out the names for these and putting little icons on them, by the way. So yeah, so we go to the survey graveyard. So what I mean by this is we have 6 monthly or annual engagement surveys that take about half an hour or 20 minutes for a team members to fill in. And we struggle to get them to fill it in the first place. We think that an 80% fill-in rate is really high. Then we get the results. We spend weeks analyzing the results. We put together a really fancy presentation, share it in an all hands. Then nothing really changes. Maybe we try, maybe we address some of the feedback, but nothing really changes. Then the next feedback survey comes around and people don't really bother answering because they're like, we've tried this, but we've done this before. It doesn't change anything. So that is mistake number 1, is having these kind of lengthy 6 monthly or annual surveys. And if you do these at the minute, just hold on to the knowledge, because we're going to talk about how to kind of get over it soon. Next is the values refresh. So having like a big internal rebrand of the company values. Maybe you've got some new posters in the office, you've had like a town hall, you've got like a fancy set of branded assets, maybe you've got some mugs with the values on, but the values tend to bear no relation whatsoever to what actually gets rewarded and tolerated day to day. Meaning rewarded as in we keep the people who really live up to the values, we ensure that we promote them, that we pay them, we increase their pay as their value increases, and we don't tolerate people who go against our values. So I don't care if they're the highest performer in the business. I don't care if they're bringing in the most sales. If they're going against our company values, what are we going to do about it? Are we getting rid of them? Are we putting them on a pip? If not, values don't really mean anything. The restructure. So if culture feels off, something we often do is go, let's reorganize the teams. Let's put in another management layer or remove a management layer or create new squads. Ultimately, we're just rearranging the same people inside the same cultural conditions. Appraisals, yearly appraisals, if we are saving feedback and praise as well for a yearly appraisal, we're like 364 days too late. So annual appraisals essentially where we sit down once a year to discuss performance. And by the time the conversation happens, we have quite often, I remember doing these years ago, you get to the conversation, you've written down the feedback and you think, is there even any point bringing this up anymore? Because it happened so long ago. And then finally, oh, sorry, there's 5. Right, 5. I've only done 5. I think I removed the last one last minute. So there's 5. So give me a number out of 5. The 5th one is the perks plaster. So free lunches, ping pong table. None of these things, by the way, are bad. The perks in the perks plaster. Things like, you know, having a vending machine in the office, having a ping pong table, all good, great. We used to have a ping pong table at the Sage office and we play it all the time. It just can't be a solution to culture. It has to be like the add-on once you have addressed the cultural issues underneath. So yes, let's see. So out of these 5, which one, how many have you done in the past, or your business or your company has done? Just drop a number in the chat. So 4, 3. How many have you or your company done in the past? 2, 3, 3, 4, some 4s. 4, 5, yeah. Yeah, big mix. Okay. Now, let me show you what to do instead. So I've got a really brilliant case study. This case study comes from Google. So Google, 2008, Google did something brilliant and very Google. Their HR team, so Google's HR team had tried to prove that managers don't matter, the middle managers don't matter. And I feel like the world of culture kind of went through this collectively together. They wanted to flatten the organization and let all the engineers self-manage, okay? Sounds kind of cool in theory. And I think if I'd have heard that off the bat, I'd have been like, okay, interesting, let's talk about it. So the HR team had tried to prove that managers don't matter, okay? They ran some really in-depth employee surveys, and the data ultimately proved them completely wrong. So when they ran these surveys, they found that the single biggest predictor of team performance, retention, and happiness came from the quality of their direct manager. And so this equally makes me happy, but also frustrates me, because I know this to be true. I know how important managers are. I know how important middle managers are, junior managers, senior managers. I know that because I've had great managers and I have had awful managers, and I just know how much of an impact they have on me and on a team and how high performing that team will be. And so Google did this very in-depth research and found that 70% of team performance variance, and I'd highly encourage you as well to go and read the full Project Oxygen kind of like what they looked at and what came off the back of it, because it's so interesting. Even in 2008, like a lot of it all still stands true. And so they did what all great businesses do. They got really curious as to why. So they surveyed their team to really understand what are the 8 behaviors of the highest performing managers who build the best cultures. And they turned it into this framework. So we've got 10, not 8. They turned it into this framework. So just have a quick read of those. We've got good coach, empowering, not micromanaging, inclusive, productive, collaborates, decision maker, technical skills, clear vision, good communicator, supports career development and performance. So this is what Google found were the 10 top behaviors of managers that positively impacted the culture. But more importantly, Google, they didn't just kind of build these out and then put them up on the wall. They measured managers against them, every single manager. And do you know how they measured them? By asking their team. They used upward feedback surveys from their team. So managers who scored poorly got more coaching, they got some more help. They buddied them up with managers who were performing highly. So they surveyed their team every week to understand exactly how their team felt about their manager. And then within, I think that from the data, it was within 1 quarter of doing this, managers already showed really measurable improvement. And over the next few years, the team performance went up, attrition went down, and they had this kind of repeatable, scalable system for building great managers and building great cultures. And so this is why when I was pulling together this kind of session, masterclass on culture, the key piece that I think we're missing as managers and as business owners is the measurement. We measure every single aspect of the business. We measure, just off the top of my head, all the KPIs, revenue. We measure product development. We measure customer success, how fast they can answer the phone, how often they can answer the phone. We look at our P&L. We look at how many sales we're bringing in, how many customers churn. We look at everything. We want to measure everything. Why do we not measure culture? Why are we not measuring it when we know how much of an impact, 70%, we know how much of an impact managers being good versus managers being bad has on a team. And it's not to kind of vilify the managers, you know, and say, if you don't perform well against these behaviors, you're out. It's to say, if you don't perform well against these behaviors, let's get you the support that you need. And so Google, the first step for me, guys, really is data. Get the data. And I'm going to show you how we are getting the data within our team. But ultimately, you can build out a Google form. You can use survey software to do it. But we have to find this data. So if we take Google's learnings mixed with my culture learnings of building, training, and leading high-performing teams over the last 10 years, in order to really build a defensible, high-performing culture that doesn't require the manager to be constantly checking in and micromanaging, we really have to measure it. Measuring is the start. And we want to measure our managers on all of these specific things. So if we go back from the survey graveyard and we look at like pulse surveys, pulse measurement, we need the data to actually act on it. So there's a few ways that you can do this. You can build your own surveys on Google Forms, which is something that I've done in the past. But we've also built something inside my team. We've built a piece of software that we use. Oh, the screenshot's not showing up. That's helpful. Bear with me. Sorry, just give me 1 second. Hopefully this will work, because I really want you to see these questions. There we go. It's not working. I'm just going to read the questions off to you, don't worry. Okay, never mind. We'll work with what we've got. Okay, so if you imagine on this screen, there's a picture of a pulse survey. And on that pulse survey, it says, these are the questions that I'm going to ask my team. And I'll send you this afterwards, guys, so you've got it on a list. When things go wrong, the focus is on learning, not blame. So the team would answer that 1 to 5. I know what good looks like. High standards are maintained, even under pressure. Praise and challenge are both used appropriately, and I have enough freedom to do my job well. These are the questions that we need to be regularly asking our team. And we've built out, we've got 72 questions in the surveys that we run. And it's only 5 questions answered from 1 to 5. It takes less than 30 seconds for them to fill it out. So if you think about the survey graveyard and how sending these surveys every 6 months or once every year takes so long to do, we're all so busy. We're all so crazy busy. This survey takes them less than 30 seconds to fill out. It's not lengthy. It's a quick tick task that they never skip because it's so quick. And then every single week, that data is consolidated. I'm really hoping that this one works. There you go. We consolidate this data into 8 scoring categories for every single manager to see exactly how their team feel about feedback, psychological safety, feedback and candor, accountability, standards, recognition, fairness, and so much more. And it gives the manager these kind of anchor points to then improve. We measure absolutely every single point of the business KPIs. This is our chance now to start measuring culture and do something about it, because I think when we talk about culture, that it's, like I said, it's such a big topic, okay? It's such a huge, ginormous topic that it can often feel so messy, so intangible, and it encompasses all these things. Accountability on its own is a huge task. Autonomy, psychological safety, recognition is huge, and it's silly for us to assume that all of our managers and us as managers know exactly which bits we're doing really well on and which bits we're falling down on. So anyway, I got really fed up and built this piece of software. It's not actually available yet, but I'll show you how you can join us for it. So what I then do after that is we turn this data, so that's just the same screenshot from before, we turn this data into proven action. So that, you know, there's plenty of survey solutions out there, But what I've built here really focuses on individual managers. So if you're an individual manager, we take all this data and turn it into exactly what is it that you need to now level up inside your team. So it's got my book in there, it's got all the fresh start education, it's got all of my YouTube videos, all that personalized training and feedback in one place. This is actually the first time we've spoke about this product, guys. It's a product we've built called Custard. And everything I've just kind of talked you through, like the diagnosis, why culture is so important, we've built it off the back of that. So it's incredibly exciting that, yeah, we can just finally show it to you now. So I'll get Levi, can you just pop a link for people to have a look at the waitlist? We've got a waitlist, it's available in June. So I would love you to just come along and have a look. But just as a roundup to culture, okay, here's what I want you to take away, is that we have to start measuring it. However you do it, whether you come along, this is a great opportunity for me to show you this product, but I care more that you measure your culture than you come along on us with this product journey. You have to, we measure what am I trying to say? You manage what you measure, okay? So if we measure revenue, if we measure sales, if we measure clients in, clients out, our team are going to be driving towards that, but they're not going to be looking into accountability, feedback, psychological safety, all the things that we know from this. Where is it? We know from this is so powerful to increase the performance within your team. And so it's just so, if there is one thing you take away from this session today, it's that we have to start measuring these things. We have to start asking our team for feedback and then acting on that feedback, not waiting for these 6 monthly surveys, not waiting for appraisals, but really understanding inside our team exactly what it is that they need and therefore how we can level them up as managers. Okay, so like I said, you'll have the waitlist link in the chat box now and inside your inbox. I would love, we're actually going to, in April's next month, in May, we're going to take 50 businesses through a really brilliant challenge where I'm going to work alongside you to implement this inside your business. And if you're an individual manager or a business owner, we can bring you all along for the journey. So Custard, our product, it can be used for an individual manager. So if it's just you and you want to level up your team, you can just use it as a hub for yourself. Or you can use the product across a team, so to level up all the managers. And so in May, we're going to be running a challenge where we bring 50 businesses on board and we see how much we can really level up your culture in just 6 weeks. So if you join the wait list, you'll get all the information on how you can do that. Okay, thank you so much, guys. So let's move into Q&A. Now, any questions that anyone has got, please throw them in the chat box. It doesn't have to be about the product. It can be about culture. It can be about leadership. I'm here for you. The next 20 minutes we've got assigned for questions. So any questions you have whatsoever, please throw them in the chat box now. Levi says you'll need to copy and paste the link. Oh yeah, it's not coming through. Can you repeat the questions or send them in here? Yes, I will do. What I'll do, we'll send the questions round in the email afterwards. So we've got an email going, I think it's in about an hour's time with the recording link. So let me put the questions in there. I completely understand. Hang on. Great. If we can get this PowerPoint course, we'll link to Custard sent in our email. Yeah, I'm guessing it's not working in the chat box, guys. So just have a look in your inbox. Levi, if you could just ping that email across now with the waitlist link, and then everyone can click it in there. I completely understand letting the team fail in a comfortable environment, but how do we aim for a high standard with the team but not accept subpar work? I want to empower the team but keep them. Yeah, so it's kind of this trade-off between allowing them to make mistakes versus, I guess, the standards being really high. So for me, those two things go hand in hand. For me, those two things are the same. And I think you will know if mistakes cross a line. Like there are certain mistakes, of course, that we have to guard against, like if it, potentially like client delivery work. But I just think allowing something that we tend to do in our like monthly review meetings is ask the question, what have you experimented with this month? Or if you couldn't fail, if you knew you couldn't fail, what would you do? And it allows you to, if you start asking these questions and adding them in as part of your like monthly measurements, it gets everyone really focused on this idea of failure being completely normal. I always think, I go to the gym almost every day, and inside the gym, failure is like what we aim for. It's what we want. Like failure is exactly what we turn up for, because we want to push ourselves to failure, because it's at that point we know the muscles are growing. And so I really think about failure like that. And I think, how do we push ourselves to the point of something not working because we've tried so hard? But keep them accountable, yeah. For those not able to use the tool, which questions are crucial to ask? So I think the most important question to ask your team on a regular basis is, if there was one thing you could change about the way I manage you, what would it be? That's a question that I love to ask on a regular basis. And it allows me to kind of tap into just giving them an opportunity to give you feedback, giving them a space to give you feedback. So many managers never, ever ask that question. Even in one-on-ones, like we run our 90-day one-on-ones every 90 days. But inside those one-on-ones, I will ask the question, if there was one thing that I could change about the way, if there was one thing you could change about the way I manage you, what would it be? And yeah, that for me, it's that question, because it's a bit broader. How do you manage a team in a culture where everyone feels overwhelmed due to a lack of capacity? I love this question. So I have got a bit of a process I go through called a roles and responsibilities audit. Now, this is all in Custard as well as education. So if you were in Custard and this question got asked, or your team were constantly reporting lack of capacity, really struggling with overwhelm, it would give the manager this suggestion. So the roles and responsibilities audit is basically, if you imagine you've got this much work to be done, okay? This is like the scope of work that needs to be done, but you only have this many people to do the work. So this is the amount of work, this is the amount of people. We can't stretch the people. So let's say, we don't want people to be overwhelmed, but we also don't have the budget or the sign off, whatever, to add more people in. So the only way we can bring the scope is to reduce the work. It's the only possible way to do it. So at that point, what I would do is get every single person in the team to write up a roles and responsibilities document. And the roles and responsibilities document needs to be really accurate. So it needs to be every single thing that they are doing, like week to week. So if they're coming in and cleaning the windows in the morning, they need to write that on their roles and responsibilities doc. Then you sit within the individual team members and you traffic light the roles and responsibilities. So you would go through and say, green are strengths. So strengths are things that strengthen you, things that you give you energy, that are valuable for the business. They're really important tasks. Red being, this is not an important piece of work. Maybe we're spending lots of time on it, but it might be urgent, but it's not important. And then amber is kind of in the middle. Then what you would do is the classic do, ditch, delegate system, where you would go through the reds and the ambers, and even now automate, not even just do, ditch, delegate. What can you automate? And so that's what I would do. And I think it's a really great, what's the word? Transparent and like co-ownership way. So if your team are complaining all the time, I've got no capacity, we're over capacity, which is okay. So, fair assessment. If you do it with them, then you say, look, I appreciate you've got no capacity. How are we getting it down? So what are we doing? What are we removing? One of the first places I would look, your calendar, meetings. How many meetings are we in every single week? Because if you're in 20 meetings a week, 15 meetings a week, that's where your time's going. Can I ask how you would work towards creating a better and safer culture when you work with different cultures? So I'm assuming you mean kind of people all over the globe, Ted, that are kind of different, maybe different ways of working, etc. There's been a few times I've experienced this. When I worked at Harrods and I managed a team there, it was incredibly multicultural, people all over the world, the most multicultural team I've ever worked in. And then when at Go Proposal, our team was split across the UK and the US. And it's so funny because you see the UK and the US as, I guess, like similar, maybe just because it's the Western world and English speaking or whatever, but So different, so very different in terms of communication styles. Something I always think works really, really well is education. So what I mean by that is having sessions or opportunities, whether it's a day, whether it's an hour, where everyone learns about the other culture. They learn and understand like what it is that kind of influences their communication styles, where their working styles come from. We've got Tisha, who I think Tisha is watching. So Tisha's from Mumbai. She's in our team. And one of the first conversations that me and Tisha had was she was telling me how she found it so interesting that in the UK, in India or in Mumbai, they're really direct. So like very direct communication. And she was saying how in the UK, she was like, why do you have so many words to say the thing that you want to say? Like you go around the houses before saying the thing. And it's just small conversations like that that really help with understanding. Like they help me to understand. They help. And when we had the UK US team, we had a bit of an incident whereby there was two women, one worked in the UK, one worked in the US. And they just didn't see eye to eye. And it was because the person in the UK said that the person in the US was like, their communication was too direct. It felt too harsh. Now, no one in that situation, in my opinion, is in the wrong. No one has done anything wrong because they weren't too direct. It was just culturally, that's how they speak. And so, and in the UK, we're just far too polite. But it's how we've been brought up, so we can't change it. For me, it's all about understanding and education across whatever cultures you have. Learn about the cultures. I also just find it fascinating. Have opportunities to, like, could you do a day? So for us, for example, we've got Tisha from Mumbai. Could you have a day where you all eat Indian food for lunch and you talk about the culture, the working culture, but in that place, and everyone just gets to understand what it's about, because we're never going to make everyone the same. Also, I would say have strong values, like we've got these core values here. That it's kind of like we want diversity in every way, shape, or form, except for the values that connect us all together. And when you have these strong values, it kind of allows you to see, like, if there is ever people who don't see eye to eye because maybe they're different culturally, if they still uphold these values, then that's okay. How can we lead with empathy but also expect high performance from my team? Another great question. So I think empathy is a word that is used when we talk about leadership every minute of every day. Empathy, empathy, empathy. And I think back in like 2015, empathy was sort of it was the new workplace word. It was like the leaders need to be empathetic, and it was very much needed at the time. We needed more empathy in the workplace. We needed the workplace to become more human. The problem is, it seems to, in my opinion, we've gone a bit too far. What I mean by too far with empathy is we no longer say the thing that people need to hear in order to grow. So now when I think about empathy, because empathy is so important and so needed, and I'm probably far too empathetic sometimes, what I like to think is the best way to use empathy properly is to also use it with transparency. And so what I mean by that is never avoid saying the difficult thing because you're scared of hurting someone's feelings, because you never know how much they might need to hear it in order to grow. And so empathy absolutely still should exist in a high-performing team. It still will exist. It'll be one of the cornerstones of a high-performing team. We just have to be very cautious to not let that empathy get in the way. So Kim Scott, who wrote Radical Candor, and just a plug for my book as well, guys, Kim Scott actually wrote the acknowledgement. That's like my fame moment, author of Radical Candor, just in case you didn't know that. Anyway, inside Radical Candor, Kim Scott calls it ruinous empathy. So she explains how empathy gone too far is kind of like disguised manipulation in a way. That's a Substack article that I've written before about, is people pleasing just a form of manipulation? Because it's like we avoid saying the thing because we don't want to lose the approval of the person. So empathy has a place in leadership. Just make sure it doesn't go too far. My current company does not think managers should get feedback from their team. It's weird. Yeah, that is very weird. I mean, could you just do it? I always think something with culture as well that's important is often, if you're a manager, you don't own the business, you don't run the business. It's not always easy for you individually to like change the culture to turn it around. But what you can do is change the culture within your team. So forget about what the business says and think, can I just change the culture that is within my team? Like be the change that I want to see, and focus on my team unit first before I think, how do I change the culture within the business? Can you please tell us more about Custard? Of course. Is it a full HR platform or predominantly surveys? So the core feature of Custard right now is I guess the survey is kind of like the input, but the output is the platform is for managers. It's not a full HR platform right now. It will be eventually, but we really wanted to hyper focus on manager development. So the entire premise of the software is getting managers every single thing that they need to build high performing cultures within their team. So the surveys power that. So every Friday morning at 8 o'clock, it sends every member in the team a very short survey. It's super quick to do. Sends them the survey, then the manager gets the report, and over the first few weeks, the reports build up. The manager gets the report to say, this is the health score within your team. These are the categories. So it's those 8 categories. It's very similar to the Google ones. These are the categories. And this is what you need to improve. We then have an AI module. It's called the Boss Bot that tells the manager exactly what they need to do. So it's preloaded with all of my education, my book, my Fresh Start course, every YouTube video, every blog post, everything that I have ever written and done. And it then says to the manager, so say if their accountability score is low, it will say, okay, you've got low accountability in your team don't feel very engaged. Go and watch this YouTube video and then take these 3 steps over the next 2 weeks to get the accountability high. And it'll be things like co-ownership over KPIs, accountability communication that they can use. And so the platform is very manager centric. It is built for managers, which is why a manager can use it individually. So before it's company wide, it can be one manager goes in. I think the pricing is going to be I think it's going to be £22 a month for one manager. So a manager could go in, we've not fully decided that yet, but that'll be about right. 22 quid a month. The manager goes in, loads their team in, so it's unlimited team members, loads their team in, gets the first few feedback surveys, and then they have the portal and the dashboard to then go and do everything they need to do about it. It can also then be company-wide too. So that is what we're doing for now. The next module we're adding on is one-on-ones. So I have built, a lot of you guys will already use my one-on-one template because I talk about it so often. So the next module that we will build into Custard is the one-on-one system, so that every manager can then go and plug and play that within their team. And then we'll keep building from there. So again, waitlist link will be in your inbox. So please come and join us because we've got so much exciting stuff happening this year. We have some stretch target KPIs for this year coming up, and I think a culture change would help increase our production. I don't know how to approach starting this without them buying into it. How would track roles and responsibilities for a manufacturing environment that have such little time? I think when we talk about time, we have to think about the cost of not doing the thing. So it's very easy with culture for it to always be on the back burner. Like it's so easy with culture for us to go, oh, I've not got time to run that one-on-one. I've not got time to give that feedback. I've not got time to do the survey or whatever. The problem is the trade-off is that in 6 months' time, the culture falls down, and then it's going to cost you a lot more time. And so it's hard to know exactly your kind of exact ways of working with a manufacturing environment. But I would still stick to the same kind of roles and responsibilities document, get the team to write their own up, and then sit with them over the next, if you've got a big team, it could just be over the course of a month, just have 20 minutes with each person looking at their roles and responsibilities document. But I would still recommend doing the same thing. How do you lead a team that's not directly reporting into you yet, when they're not fully committed and interested to be a part of it? So this is a tough one. It does have more complexity. Bear with me. It does have a bit more complexity because you don't have that direct line of management. what I always say, because it's kind of like dotted line reporting or project management reporting, what I always say is you have to learn really well how to influence people. And the best way I have learned over the years of how to influence people is connect what you're trying to get them to do with their goals. And what I mean by that is we tend to run around a lot of the time as leaders, as you know, we want people to be inspired by us. We want people to follow us. We would love in a ideal world for people to just take what we say and do it, and it's all fine. What I like to think when I think about influencing people is, instead of me saying to someone, I want you to do this thing because it produces this outcome, connect it to their goals. So for example, I know your goals are X, Y, and Z, and if we get this project done sooner, it will, help us get to that goal quicker. And it's the best way I have learned over the years, because it's the same way for managing up. When you're, how to manage up, the best advice I always have is, when you communicate with people that aren't in your direct team, but you kind of want to give them feedback or communicate something, connect it to their goals, connect it to like the bigger purpose and the bigger why, instead of, can you run this report by Friday? Because it just, and it also, it's kind of like respectful to them as well, to say, I understand that you've got lots going on, but this should help. Could you share your company values? I can. So we've got choose progress over perfection, stay above the line, which is above the line thinking. So that's take ownership, accountability, ownership, acceptance, responsibility. Below the line is blame, excuses, and denial. Give and receive criticism to drive excellence. So we love feedback. We give it to each other. We give it up, down, sideways. Be curious and drive change. So this is all about innovation. I want the team to experiment. I want them to try new things. And then prioritize existing customers over new ones. So that one's really important to me, because in business, often we get so caught up in new customers, need new sales, new revenue, bring new people in, when actually we already have such a powerful, valuable base of customers. We only need 1,000 true fans. If you've never read the 1,000 True Fans blog post, go and read it. We only need 1,000 true fans, and those people. And so it's like, when I build anything, I try and think about, how do I just give back to my existing community, instead of more. I need more people. I need more. It's like with social media, my aim isn't to get more followers. It's to create videos that are really valuable for the existing followers that I do have. Because the moment you start focusing on that external more, it makes you build things that aren't right. So for example, with Custard, like just going back to this, the one thing I've had in my head the whole time we've been building this is just the current people that I already serve, that I already work with, my current clients, the massive companies who I help and work with, COOs and MDs. How can I help them? And it's this. The reason that I built Custard was, there's only so much of me. There's only one of me. And so I can go into all these workplaces and do this manager training and, run the Fresh Start courses. There's only one of me. There is a limit to how many people I can impact. And my mission has always been to build a world where everyone loves the work they do. That's been my mission for a very long time, because of the fact that I kind of experienced my career in these two halves, whereby the first half of my career was just quite miserable. I was really lonely. I was so insecure. I didn't value myself. I didn't value my self-worth. Then moving into a job that I loved, it was like the catalyst for me to just sort my life out. And I started loving life. I started going to the gym. I started taking care of my thoughts and my mental health. And, the last 6 or 7 years since going on that career journey, I'm just so happy. Life is so much better. And the catalyst was a job. It was a job that I loved. And so my mission now is just to get that experience to as many people across the globe as possible. And with training, there's only so much I can do. And so we built a product that I believe will do that. Okay, guys, we've reached 4 o'clock, so you're welcome to leave. I'll say thank you now. I will stay on to answer the rest of the questions, but I will just, in case anyone needs to leave, just say a massive thank you. I would love to see as many of you on that Custard waitlist as possible, if for no reason other than if you just feel really nosy, because we're going to start sharing loads of product stuff, like all the great things that we're building, all the partners that we're working with. the build process. We're going to start showing so much of behind the scenes. This is the very first time I've spoke about it to anyone. I was quite nervous to say it out loud, but it was a good test for me. And so, yeah, just a massive thank you for being here. Thank you for being on the same mission as me, which is to build a team that love the work that they do and are challenged and fulfilled. And so thank you so much. My book is called Your Boss Era, published by Ebury Penguin last year. It's brilliant. It's got very good, it's brilliant. I can say that, but it's also got really good reviews on Amazon. So I feel very confident that it is brilliant now. Okay, let me get to the other questions, but thank you so much for being here. If you need to jump off, please do. If you missed anything, this will be going on YouTube, I'm guessing, because that's where we are. YouTube will be uploaded, and we'll send over the email with the missing screenshots. But yes, I'd love to see some of you in Custard. Okay, let me jump to those last questions. Our company values are hard to relate to my specific department. Would it be worth me creating department values with company values in mind? It's a hard one, that, because I think the answer for me would potentially be no, mainly because you don't want it to get too convoluted. Like, the company values should relate to your department. If they really, really don't, I would feed that back to someone, because that's not good at all. And is there a way, you know, if you were to think about it, is there a way that they could relate? Is it maybe that they just need a better explanation and understanding to relate them to your department? Because you technically could create your own. The problem is you kind of just will be like pushing a boulder up a hill, because the company's going to be pushing these values and you're pushing these ones, and it's going to get a bit confusing for your team. So my gut tells me it wouldn't be a good idea. But that being said, don't just leave it there. Like, I would go back to the business and say, you know, I really want to work on these and use them, but they don't feel helpful. How can we ensure toxic competitiveness doesn't creep into a high-performing team? Oh, interesting. I probably would say, as long as make sure that your like KPIs and any sort of reward system you have in place, so if it's a bonus system, a pay rise system, whatever, KPIs aren't competitive. Because like we said before, you manage what you measure. And so if you have very competitive measurements, it would be very naturally easy for people to start getting competitive. Whereas if you see it as like a team shared goal, it's kind of like you can get competitive, but it's not going to be welcomed. So that's where I would look first, is like the systems inside the team that could be competitive. So like, yeah, things like KPIs and bonus systems, pay rise systems, are any of those linked to something that could be competitive? If so, that's where I'd start to undo it. I have 2 teams combining under me. One I've led for a while with good culture, and one that's new to me and doesn't have the greatest culture. How do I combine without losing the good culture? I would probably I think the first thing that I would do is keep them separate for a little while. Don't combine them until you've kind of fixed what needs to be fixed, and give yourself a deadline for that. Don't let it go on too long. Look at the culture that's bad. Do some of this. So measure it, get feedback from the team and really understand why. And then try to understand if, and this is what I do with all teams, is there 1 or 2 individuals who are negatively impacting the rest of the team? Because if they are, sometimes it's not that the culture's bad, but that there are 1 or 2 individuals who are more difficult, and therefore it feels like the culture's bad because they're kind of doing this performance around making it quite hard for everyone else to be positive. And so that's where I would go first. Once you've understood that, can we performance manage them? Can we just have some conversations with them to explain why? Can we exit them if they're really not kind of living up to what we need them to be? So that's where I go. Thanks, guys. Is it still worth doing pulse surveys if you don't necessarily have the tools or capacity to make changes based on the results? Do people expect change after pulse surveys? 100%. So change doesn't have to be huge. And so when you look at surveys like this, the idea isn't that overnight we make like massive changes. We won't be making structural changes. We won't be making pay changes. It's none of that stuff. It's just that by doing pulse surveys, as opposed to like the big chunky engagement surveys, the difference is you get to understand the day-to-day stresses, the day-to-day annoyances of the team, as opposed to like the massive sort of, we don't like this working environment, we don't like this, and it feels very big and hard to put into place. And so that's when that's where I would say the capacity bit gets hard, because it's big changes to make, and it's hard, and it feels like, where do we even begin? When you run these pulse surveys, what you find is the feedback that you get isn't necessarily massive. Sometimes it's just a case of, like, I remember I used to run these with my team years ago in a slightly different way, but in a way that still was really helpful. And I remember once the team's stress levels were fine, and then we went through this big launch phase, and the stress levels just gradually went up and spiked. And I hadn't noticed it within the team. No one had told me, no one had like made it obvious that the team was stressed. But from the feedback, it clearly was like, fine, everyone's stress level, it's okay, a bit up and down. Then all of a sudden just spikes. And I was like, oh, that's not good. So what I said to the team was straight away is I was like, look, I know we're going through a launch. I know it's a bit stressful right now. Just acknowledging it. Sometimes just acknowledging those things goes a long way to say, thank you. I appreciate this is tough. And what I said to them was, when the launch is done, we're all going to go out of the office for a day and have a no laptop, away from the office, like chill day. And we gave the individual teams all I think we gave them like 500 quid each in budget to go and do a wellness de-stress day. And so some teams went and did like a physical challenge. Some teams went to the spa. Some teams went to do like a pottery thing. And it was just off the back of that quick feedback that we picked up on that. And it was something that, we may not have noticed. And if we'd have kept running the launches and just kept expecting this like high stress level, we could have lost really great members of the team, or just disillusioned them, or they just gradually over time start to get annoyed. But just when you find out those things quickly in the moment, they're so easy to just, you don't even need to fix it. It's not like you've got to fix the stress. It's more, we acknowledge it. I appreciate this, thank you, and here's something we're going to try and do to help you get on top of it, but let's keep talking. And so that's why pulse surveys, like the capacity, you don't need as much capacity as you do with the massive engagement surveys. They don't take long to fill out, and they're not hard to act on. In another quick example, like if you got the feedback from the pulse surveys that the team felt as though they weren't praised enough, that's another really common one, that they feel as though their work isn't recognized very often. It's so simple for the manager to then just go, okay, let's add, when we do our monthly business reviews, our weekly trade meetings, whatever KPI meetings you have, let's just add a quick, and this is what Custard would tell you as well. It would say, just add some sort of systematic change. It could just be one tiny line inside the reporting, the weekly report that you do, that says, everyone, what is your biggest win this week? And then you publicly praise people. And it's just over time, you catch these small things that you don't realize people are missing out on. And all of a sudden it's simple to do things about, instead of leaving it for a year. And then it's like, no one recognizes people and I'm not paid fair enough, where it's like, we can just get on top of it in small ways quicker. Okay, we've reached the end of the questions. So thank you to the 69, great number, 68 now. Thanks for staying, guys. So you're the real ones who've really stayed for the duration. Sorry I've come in late. How do we get on the wait list? There's a link in your inbox to get on the wait list. So yes, I'll end it there. You know where I am, guys. If you've got any questions, you can always email me. You can always DM me. You can always send me a message wherever I am, and I will get back. It sometimes takes me a couple of weeks, but I will always get back to you. So just a massive thank you for being here, for investing time in leveling up your team. For investing time in leveling up your team. It means a lot to me, and it means a lot to your team too. So thank you for being here. Hope to see you inside Custard in the next few weeks, and hope to see some of you join me in that challenge, because we're going to have a lot of fun. You'll be with me on like weekly calls, but more info coming to the waitlist soon. Thank you so much, guys. See you later. Bye-bye.